There have been several outstanding big men throughout the NBA's history, including Wilt, Russell, Kareem, Moses, Shaq, Duncan, Dirk, and CG. For many years, the NBA was a league built on the big man. In fact, big men won 34 of the first 50 NBA MVP awards. However, things started to alter some 15 years ago. The NBA began to shift to a more guard heavy league teams began to construct their rosters around shooters and perimeter players, and the once sacred big men began to slip further and further into irrelevance. For over a decade, not a single power forward or center was selected as the league MVP. On pick and rolls, big men were nearly always used as a distraction. The days of frightening, game-changing 7-footers were long gone, and things were looking dismal. Seemingly out of nowhere in a league full of three-pointers, position-loose basketball, and the most skilled guard play we've ever seen. This is Hoops Network Incorporated, and in this video we'll see dominant big men who have made a violent return to the NBA. The big man is back, and it might just be better than ever. Wilt Chamberlain established the standard for NBA big men and really NBA players in general in 1962. Wilt Chamberlain set a season-long record by averaging 50 points and 26 rebounds per game. Numbers that are yet irrational. His player efficiency rating that season was 32.1. For decades, this record-high PR would go unmatched, and other than a few historic seasons, no one even came close to matching this. Here's a chart of the highest single-season players from big men in NBA history. Literally every great season in NBA history from a great big man has been this one. Here's Kareem's legendary 1972 campaign. The MVP seasons of Charles Barkley and Shaq all occurred in the 2000 season. Tim Duncan's greatest season so far. They're all here. And here's Wilt's 1962 record-breaking season that earned him a PR of 32.1. Now here's Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid Spurs from this season, three of the most efficient and productive seasons of any NBA bigs in NBA history, all in the same season. We are talking about a magnitude equal to that of Wilt Chamberlain's prime seasons by three separate big men in 1 year. Not only is this level of dominance from three players absolutely unprecedented, it's statistically unbelievable. These three young stars have simultaneously exceeded all of the greats over countless seasons. With DeMar DeRozan, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, and Ja Morant in the running, the 2022 MVP race may be the most competitive in recent memory. This season, a dozen players have received significant consideration for the MVP award. But after it was all said and done, three players stood out as being obviously in the lead: Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, and Nikola Jokic. Is the fact that all three of these players are enormous large men a coincidence? Maybe. But for a very good reason, there's a clear distinction between them and everyone else. In fact, outside of Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid, here's the list of players to average at least 27 points per game, 11.5 rebounds per game, and 4 assists for a season in modern NBA history. That's it. That's the whole list. Literally nobody. And yet somehow Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid all had averages above this stat line this season. We are talking about production from big men that we've never seen in the modern NBA. Even stranger, since 1976, only two players have averaged more than 30 points and 11 rebounds per game throughout the course of a single season. Shaquille O'Neal in 2000 and Moses Malone in 1982, and both of them won the MVP in those seasons. It's a stat line that's so difficult to achieve that it's virtually a surefire way to be named the league's most valuable player. And yet both Giannis and Embiid averaged more than 30 points and 11 rebounds a game this season, and neither of them are likely to win the MVP award. These guys are putting up prime Shaq numbers, and because of how stacked the league is at the moment, both of them will come up short of the MVP. And it's not like these players are performing well for awful teams. Both the Bucks and the Sixers earned top seeds in the East after winning more than 50 games this year. The most dominant two-way player in the NBA, Giannis continues to put up crazy numbers. Joel Embiid became the first center in 22 years to win a scoring title with an offensive game so refined you'd think Hakeem Olajuwon was his biological father, and Nikola Jokic pretty much broke advanced metrics this season on his way to becoming the first player in NBA history with 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists in a single season. If you remember back then, the best big men in the league were considered inferior than the league's top perimeter players. Players like David Lee, Tyson Chandler, Andrew Bynum, DeAndre Jordan, and Al Jefferson made all NBA teams over the past 10 years. Those guys were all good players at their peak, but fast forward to today's NBA, and you have to be damn near an MVP caliber player just to make an all-NBA team as a big man to find dominance from big men like we saw this season. We have to turn the clocks all the way back to the 90s, back when the NBA was controlled by bruising 7-footers. David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley. How's that for a league that is stacked with all-time big talents? And these were just the best big men in the NBA. 27 years ago, this was the MVP leaderboard for the 1995 NBA season. And just look at their numbers. This is absurd. Nearly all of them are averaging a 25-point double-double. It isn't until the 7th spot on the MVP leaderboard that we'll find a non-big man. And the first guard that comes up is John Stockton, who came in 8th in MVP voting that season. Can you even imagine if the 8th most important player in the NBA was thought to be the best guard in the entire league? That was the NBA some 30 years ago. Even while there aren't quite as many strong, powerful men as there were in the 1990s, the quality is still very high. Quickly becoming the greatest playmaking big man of all time is Nikola Jokic. His basketball IQ, his vision, his ability to manipulate the defense on all 3 levels makes him the ultimate threat at all times. There's truly never been a player like the Joker, and has one of one skill set, has single-handedly carried his team to the playoffs and has made him the league's most valuable player. Giannis has been so dominant for so long now that when he drops 40 and 15 while being the best defensive player on the court, it isn't some sort of headline. And if his freakish length and athleticism didn't make him impossible to guard, he's now added a mid-post game to his arsenal. That makes any defender look absolutely helpless. We are talking about a player with the imposing physicality of a prime, Shaquille O'Neal, that can also bring the ball up the court and Eurostep his way to an easy bucket. This shouldn't even be a thing, but Giannis Antetokounmpo made it one. And Joel Embiid has mastered his offensive game to the point where he doesn't have a single weakness offensively. Shots that were once reserved for the league's best shooters are now well within the bag of a 7-foot, 2-inch, 300-pound behemoth. Players this big usually have trouble just getting up and down the court. As Beat carefully builds his way to 30 points a game, the defense is forced to perform gymnastics in order to stop him. All 3 of these large men have their own unique games, none of which are similar to the others, but they are all equally as steadfastly dominant. And to show how important this season was for these 3 guys historically, I'll leave you with this. The 45 Club, a club exclusive to only the most productive players in NBA history, combining players' points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game for any given season, and if that total exceeds 45, they were playing in all-time historic territory. Now, throughout the history of the modern NBA, this has happened just 23 times. It was first accomplished by Moses Malone in 1982, followed by some of the greatest seasons by some of the greatest players in NBA history. Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Shaq, LeBron, Kobe Westbrook had a ridiculous total of 52.7 in 2017, and most recently Nikola Jokic joined the 45 Club just last season. This list of players and their best seasons is peak NBA on full display. But if we remove all the players who aren't big men, we are left with just 4 players across 6 seasons who accomplished this feat. 5 of those 6 seasons earned these players MVP honors this season. Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid all joined the 45 Club. And yet only one of them will go home as the league's most valuable player. The big man is back, and it may just be better than ever. Hope you all enjoy it, and as always, until next.